Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Total Saints podcast. We are the weekly Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. This podcast is being live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Twitch. So good evening if you're watching along live, and of course, a happy Easter. Now, our podcast is supported by our loyal Patreon community. Without you, we couldn't make the show each week, so thank you as always. Coming up this week on the podcast, a disappointing draw against Middlesbrough in the first of our 10 cup finals. But is that the end of the automatic promotion hopes? Going to discuss the game with the team in just a bit. And it's a trip to top of the table Ipswich on Monday evening. Our old friend Benjamin Bloom from the Blue Monday podcast is going to be here soon to help us preview that game. My name is Martin Starke, and joining me this evening is Steve Grant, the owner of Saints Web, Glenn Delacour, writer of the blog League One -10, and Alfie House, who is senior Southampton reporter for the Daily Echo. Underpinned by our TSP patrons, this is episode 270 of the Total Saints podcast. So we start, as always, with a shout out to our Patreon community because their monthly contributions support the show. We have 4 tiers ranging from £5 to £20 per month. And aside from supporting the podcast, each of those tiers has different perks like access to an ad-free version of the pod. There's exclusive TSP t-shirts, the TSP FPL, and you've got access to our TSP events and much more. And speaking of the events, if you're in one of our top 4 tiers, thank you for joining us for the virtual meetup earlier in the week. For those that couldn't make it, a replay of the call is now on your Patreon feed, so do go and check that out. And if you'd like to get involved in supporting TSP each month, just head over to patreon.com/Total Saints podcast to find out more. All the links are in the podcast show notes and the YouTube description. There's lots to discuss tonight, so let's get into the football. And we start with that game at the weekend. Saints wasted a string of chances and then conceded a 90th minute goal to draw 1-1 with Middlesbrough on what was a not so good Friday. I mean, Alfie, it feels like we've seen it all before, haven't we? It's quite predictable, that inability to shut a side out, and then it comes back to haunt us.
Yeah, very similar to the Rotherham game, I suppose, in that regard, all that time ago. I said at full time, my sort of summary was that it was criminal but predictable. It was criminal, in my opinion. I thought for 75% of the game and in 75% of the pitch, I thought they were quite good. There was that 15 minutes before the second half where it was way too slow. It was really pedestrian. I think you sort of see the impact of maybe having some time away and some fitness problems. But quite simply, they're not good enough in both boxes at the moment. It's 5 league games in a row. They haven't been good enough in their own box. 2 before West Brom as well, if you take out that clean sheet. And I was having a look today and just having a look at previous seasons, the previous records. And I think 8 of the last 11 playoff finals have been won by keeping a clean sheet. And at the moment, something's going to have to change if Southampton want to be that team that's going to do that. And I'm sure we'll delve deeper into the other end of the pitch, but it's genuinely harder to miss that second Jay Adams chance than it is to score it. The one-on-one, he's not going to score the one-on-one anyway, so you sort of put that to the back of your mind. But the open goal from 6 yards, you just have to put away. But it's not only him. Adam Armstrong had a couple of chances in the box. Kamaldeen Suleiman and Will Smallbone, they both sort of fired over a couple that were a little bit speculative. But yeah, it's another 2 points dropped. On a day where they could have made up some ground as well, because only Ipswich actually won their game as well. They've not been great after all 4 international breaks now. Maybe they lose a bit of flow. They did have a few problems, as I said. Jan Bednarek, David Brooks, not quite fit enough to start. But yeah, overall, a decent performance, but ultimately you're going to be disappointed because they've just not done enough.
It felt, Glenn, I mean, you were saying on your social media beforehand that you got to the game just as that other result came in and you thought, well, this is here for the taking. And then you were kind of like half joking that watch us go and balls this up. And then lo and behold, you kind of did.
Yeah, I've been here before. I've been here a long time. And you could kind of see it coming, but not in the first half. I mean, we started the game well, got the goal. Which was down to a defensive mistake. I mean, what Johnny Howson was doing, smashing that ball up in the air. But having said that, it was I've criticised Adam Armstrong for his touch before. That was a really good touch to bring the ball down. It's a lovely finish. Back at probably about the only place in the goal where he could have put it and scored. And that was an excellent start. But and we looked like we were going to score a second goal. Adam Armstrong put one over, but then, as everyone has noticed, the rest of the first half was just it was fall asleep football, wasn't it? They were happy to sit in their shape, and we just didn't do anything to stretch the defence at all. Middlesbrough had obviously decided to set out their stall till half time and only be 1 goal down, and then have another go in the second half. But I thought they were terrible, to be honest. I thought they were sort of lacking in ambition, and there really wasn't much about Middlesbrough at all. And that's why I think that, obviously they're not as bad as Rotherham, but as Alfie said, this result was up there with that. And it was terrible, and it was all our own fault. And when all the chances got missed, you kind of knew that it was the least surprising thing in the world when the I can't even pronounce his name, Latte, whatever his name is, when he scored, when he scored that goal. It's just like went down the wing. Here it comes. Oh, there he is. What a surprise! And it was shocking. I don't know what Russell Martin was doing with the substitutions throughout the game. It was bizarre. It's bizarre to me that Joe Rothwell didn't come on, bearing in mind his record of scoring goals. He said in his interview about the lack of legs caused by the international break and stuff like that. But we made the last 2 substitutions in the 91st minute. So, I mean, Stuart Armstrong was blown out of his backside after 70 minutes and stayed on the pitch. It was I just have a feeling there was too much thinking about Monday's game and not enough thinking about the game that was, that was being played. So, Russell Martin, I want to be really annoyed and I want to keep hold of my anger. And then you see his interview, and he actually points out all the things that we all point out. Things we didn't do well. I mean, the equalising goal. There's 3 of our players over there who could block the cross, and they all take a step backwards and let him cross it. And I think it's Walker-Peters has totally lost his man in the middle. And he points out all those things. He pointed out the bad end to the first half, and it's just frustrating that they can see it happening and not do anything about it. But the lack of substitutions was a bit of a mystery to me. The defensive setup, it seemed at times we were trying to play 3 at the back and push Walker-Peters forward, and it was kind of this hybrid thing that we're not good enough to play. We don't have the players to play it. It just, we're not good enough to play like that. We're not Man City. We can't do it. And it was. I felt like it was trying to be overcomplicated, and we seem to chop from that to a flat back 4 at various points in the game. And there was that horrible bit at the start of the second half where Walker-Peters got caught miles forward, and they attacked with the whole left side of the pitch to run into. So there were certainly things that were not right with that performance and the way we set up, and it did feel like a defeat, and and whatever they say about it, not causing any damage, it does. This was one of the more winnable games that we've got, and I was thinking we had to get 25 points out of 30, and now we've probably got to get 25 points out of 27. It's just it's going to be very difficult from here on in for us to get involved in the top 2.
I mean, Steve, it was never going to be easy at this stage of the season, but you think with Leicester and then Leeds also dropping some points, we've just got no one else to blame apart from ourselves, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, that every time one of these sides has kind of shown a bit of weakness, nobody else has really been able to grasp the metal and sort of pull away. Leeds' record this calendar year has been extraordinary, and yet they never really looked any good on Friday night. I didn't think at Watford. Watford, who have been rubbish most of the season, kind of held them at arm's length, really, I thought. And they'll probably be annoyed that they didn't hold on for the win as well, in the same way that we didn't. But yeah, we've been saying obviously all the way through that we could only kind of deal with what we can do. We can only kind of concentrate on our own games, but it's only natural to kind of have a little glance over and see what the competition are doing. And I mean, that Leicester side is not going up, as far as I can see it. The way they're playing, they just look. It feels as if they've been going through the motions for like 4 months. It's mad, and yet we've not quite been able to kind of pick it up and run with it. Even that 25 game unbeaten run, there was that kind of middly period just before Christmas where we drew a lot of games, especially away from home. And I think ultimately it's not actually going to be the games that we've lost that are going to cost us automatic promotion. It's going to be the draws, the ones where we've led and looked completely dominant, and then somehow something's happened late in the game. So Rotherham, Middlesbrough yesterday, of course, Watford. Try to think of others now. Norwich away, where we were so Huddersfield, of course.
Yeah.
Games where we were so dominant, and all it needed was one more, and that shouldn't have been too much to ask. I mean, some of those games we didn't actually create that many chances, so okay, it happens. But yesterday we created more than enough to win that game 3 or 4-0. And Middlesbrough would have had no complaints. Their fans would have walked away pretty annoyed that they've basically not turned up, other than like a 5-minute spell in the middle of the first half where they had that chance where they hit the post from distance. And yeah, it's frustrating that we've got a centre forward with Premier League experience and into double figures this season who can't score with as good, kind of almost as close to an open goal as you could possibly get, and as much time as you could ever wish for from 6 yards out, and he somehow shanked it wide. And yeah, and as Glenn said, like with the 1-on-1, you're always automatically slightly less confident with players at this level anyway. I'm not sure there's really any striker in the Championship who put through 1-on-1 against a decent Championship goalkeeper. You kind of actually think that most of them probably won't score. Keepers
it's crap though, isn't it? I mean, what do strikers do? They probably practice every day in training scoring from the edge of the box where there's no defenders and you've just got the goalkeeper to beat. And that was the thing about the first one for me, is that Che Adams didn't look like he had the faintest idea what he was doing there. He should have known, what's my finish from this side of the box, with the goalkeeper where he is. Whether you switch it onto your left foot, whether you curl it round, whether you drill it or whatever. And he just looked like he was like, oh my God, rabbit in the headlights. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll try and side foot it at the near post, which is the worst thing you can do, because if he goes far post, it might get parried out to someone. It was just awful. And actually, I thought that was worse than the open goal, to be honest, because, at least that came to him fairly quickly and he just had to hit it. But it's terrible. Don't get me wrong. But the first one, you practice that every day. So what on earth are you doing having no idea what to do in that scenario? Rant over.
Yeah, I mean, I still find it staggering that we're continually seeing all these. I mean, there were obviously new links came out this week that that Wolves are sniffing around for next season. Why? What on earth are they seeing here? That this is the guy that's gonna. I mean, Wolves are what? Are they in the top half? I think they are, aren't they? Possibly, just about.
Yeah.
What?
Take them to the next level.
How is he the guy that's taking them to Europa League qualification? Mental. But hey ho.
Just a quick word on the back four, Alfie. Slightly different back four with Jack Stevens obviously coming in for Jan Bednarek. That great tackle from Stevens, where I think, to be fair, it came off the striker's knee, didn't it? His first touch wasn't great, but a really good tackle. And then the return of the diagonal balls from Harbour Bellis as well. So there were some positives around that back four, aside from the goal that they conceded.
Yeah, I mean, that was the quickest I've ever seen Jack Stevens move as well, to be fair. It was a good bit of defending. He had a good game. I thought James Bree had another good game as well. And like you say, Taylor and Carr were fine in parts. I mean, you didn't agree with that, Glenn? You didn't agree that James Bree?
I thought James Bree was an absolute liability in the first half. He did all right in the second.
They were targeting him, though, weren't they? You look at the team sheet and you go, we're going to target that side.
It's going to be an interesting decision for Russell Martin tomorrow anyway, because obviously he will have Jan Bednarek back to fitness. He's confirmed that. He won't want to drop Jack Stevens. Ryan Manning will be fit as well. So, does he do something completely rogue and switch up the formation, try and surprise like he did against Leeds all that time ago after a little bit of a bad run? I guess we'll see, but I suppose we probably should chat about Ipswich now.
Yeah, we should. We'll do Player of the Week before we finish, so do stick around for that. I mean, we've got 8 games in April. It's absolutely mental. The first of those is obviously the trip to Ipswich tomorrow evening, and I'm pleased to say that our old friend Benjamin Bloom is joining us from the Blue Monday podcast to help us preview the game. I mean, Benjamin, I think you were one of the first guest pods that we had on back in, it was about 6 months ago, wasn't it, when we last played? And you were there or thereabouts. You'd had a great start to the season, and the big question was, will they still be there after Christmas? And by God, they are. I mean, top of the league and on merit too.
Thank you for saying that. Glenn will be laughing at that comment because we were on a different podcast together the other day where other reasons were given for Ipswich's success that were
I was going to say
respectful than you've just alluded to.
you've had a lucky run, right?
A lucky run for about 2 years now, resulting in 81 goals and 25 wins. But look, come on, this is a credible podcast, so I appreciate your respectful tone. Yeah, you were going through your iffy September, weren't you? And the players, the narrative back then in September was, the players were being asked to do something that was very, very different at Southampton than they were previously being under various regimes before. And you had a horrible run, didn't you, where you played, I think, like Ipswich, Leicester, Leeds, and another difficult game, I think, all in a row. And it's almost a little bit like, is that game relevant? It was midweek. Ipswich made 5 changes as well. Just feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Hutchinson got the goal, and so much has changed since then. Other than, as you've alluded to, Ipswich is somehow still hanging around 3 year one parachute teams. They're above all of them, for goodness sake. So just crazy beyond expectations. And we've joked on our podcast, September, October, November, December. I'm going all the way to April if you haven't seen where this is going. And Ipswich still in the promotion chat. So, yeah, it's just an incredible season.
I mean, we've all had our blip. Like you say, ours was kind of back in September when we got absolutely hammered by Sunderland. We lost to Middlesbrough as well. You've had your blip as well. The difference being, I think you probably recovered better from that, perhaps, and it didn't knock you off your stride too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because you can almost, like the Southampton blip, well, new manager, big turnover of players, explain that away. The Leeds blip, take over, big turnover of players. The Ipswich blip as well, where, I think against QPR, basically 5 of the first starters were out and Morsey was suspended, who's pretty much the most important player. George Hurst then got injured for the rest of the season. So it's just been an incredible season. I mean, maybe Leicester are having their blip now, and maybe that's the least explicable. Is that a word? The most inexplicable blip of them all. But yeah, I mean, the way they've bounced back's been incredible. So I think it's like 7 wins in 8 now. And I mean, even during that, there was this galling defeat at Cardiff where we kind of played all right, nicked a goal. Cardiff hadn't been in the Ipswich box for 40 minutes and scored 2 set plays. And they bounced back and won 6-0 the next game against Sheffield Wednesday. It's just a team with an incredible ability to win football matches.
Tell us about the additions in January, because obviously a couple of extra players coming in. We managed to nick a couple from Bournemouth, and I know you got one in as well that's delivering.
Well, given what's happened to Ross Stewart, you could have done with nicking the one that we nicked, couldn't you? But no,
that's not lost on us.
Well, yeah, amen. Talk about luck. Signing someone for 10 million quid and then being injured all season, I will give you, is bad luck. Yes, indeed. But no, the massive one was George Hurst had been doing in the system Ipswich players, very sort of modern, where the striker doesn't really just hang around in the box trying to score like, Alan Shearer would have done for Southampton back in the day. But he's kind of running all over the place. And George Hurst became injured against Leicester on Boxing Day. So that was going to be the absolutely vital one of bringing someone in. And just a weird story, because Kiefer Moore was at Ipswich before, and bless him, he was appalling. He just stepped up from sort of, I think it was Torquay or something, and couldn't head it, couldn't kick it. And then he went off to Rotherham and Barnsley and came back. We joked on the podcast, it was like Robbie Williams and Take That, where he left as the fat dancer and he came back as the, he'd done more than Take That had done. That was the kind of joke we'd had. He was the big signing. And I suppose you play a little bit different. When you've got a 6'5" striker, you do tend to put a bit more crosses in rather than cutbacks. And, when you're being pressed, you can clip it into the front. And I suppose the other one is Jeremy Sarmiento. He came in as well. He's a bit more a bench player. Interestingly enough, you might actually see Lewes Travis tomorrow, given the way that Southampton will play. Just a really experienced championship midfielder on loan from Blackburn. But yeah, just with Ipswich at the moment, again, they made the signings, and the signings have come into a system that's working really well, and they all seem to have worked out.
It was a tough game on Friday, but a win is a
Telling
win.
me.
And they say, not at your best, getting a win, stuff for champions. I mean, what are your thoughts on Monday? Was there we just talking about our game on Good Friday? Maybe he had one eye on Monday. What kind of game are you expecting on tomorrow? Isn't it Monday night?
Well, we're expecting a very, very different game than on Friday night, because I'm sure you guys were across it on Sky, but it was not pretty. From about 60 minutes out, Ipswich didn't string two passes together, basically, and just clung on for dear life. We have to acknowledge, with all self-awareness and humility, that Blackburn had a goal disallowed in the first half that probably in VAR land, where you've just come from, they would argue, is he in the keeper's line of sight? Probably not. Probably a goal.
Coin
Also
toss,
in VAR.
that one, I thought.
Say again, Steve, sorry?
Coin toss on that one, I reckon.
Yeah, and the mitigating factor against that is in VAR land, the big pull on Nathan Broadhead in minute 7 would probably been a penalty in VAR land as well. But Blackburn played very differently to how Southampton will. Southampton will keep the ball and, pass. And as we know about John Eustace, the Blackburn manager, it was sit in and press. And to be fair to Blackburn, they played really well and could well have got something from the game. And you're not going to want to hear this, but the teams that have given Ipswich the most trouble this season: QPR away, Ainsworth, Rotherham twice. This game against Blackburn, the teams that have given Ipswich the most trouble have sat behind the ball, counter-attacked, and Ipswich haven't really known what to do. But we all know that ain't happening tomorrow.
No, we're not changing our style. Will Russell Martin get a nice warm welcome?
I think there's so much else going on that I find it quite juvenile, to be honest, but the ex-Norwich connection. Really interested in whether Flynn Downs will get any stick, because I think a lot of Ipswich fans think that the club was a complete mess and he did the right thing in getting the hell out when he did. But obviously there'll be a certain pockets that will be resentful. So I hope he doesn't, because I thought Flynn Downs was a great player for us. And from what Glenn was saying when I spoke to him the other day, a great player for you as well.
Yeah, he is. Glenn, what are your thoughts on the game tomorrow? It's going to be really tough, isn't it? Really tough one.
It is. I mean, the fact that Ipswich have gone top of the, I'm going to clasp at some straws here. I mean, the fact that Ipswich have gone top of the league, it's a different type of pressure, and suddenly it becomes in sharper focus when you do hit the top, and there are only, I mean, you must only have 7 games left.
Yep.
Yeah, so you do hit the top with that few games to go. I'm just hoping that subconsciously Ipswich will be thinking a draw was all right for us here in this particular game. Whereas Saints, there's no, whatever they say, they have to go and try and win this game. I think they have to try and win this game, obviously for the points, but also to get everybody believing that something might be possible, because that was depressing on Friday. You know what happened there against what I thought was a very poor Middlesbrough side. So I'm hoping we go out with the attitude of we're going to try and get on the front foot. We're not going to have this half an hour spell in the game where we just do absolutely nothing. We're going to try and take it to Ipswich. And I mean, as you already said, we're not going to sit back behind the ball. We are going to try and dominate it. And to be honest, that's the best way for us to play. And regardless of the fact that Ipswich are top of the league, we have to do our thing. That's the most likely way that we are going to win. So I am hoping that Ipswich get a little bit of stage fright, but I've thought that at various times this season, as Ben was alluding to earlier on. They had their dodgy run, then they won 6 in a row, and teams near the top have tended to lose 2 or 3 on the bounce when they've had a problem, but Ipswich have had no such problem with that. I mean, it's been a remarkable season, and I don't have anything I don't have anything. I usually try and get a dig in at the other teams when do you remember the West Brom guy?
He saw how I fired back at that Leicester fella the other day, so he's easing off. Yeah,
I do try and get a dig in, but I got absolutely nothing to say about Ipswich. I think they've been tremendous. The fact they come from League One, the players they got.
Well, you guys did it. You guys did it, didn't you? Went straight through.
Very, very different back then. I would say. I think the parachute payment difference isn't as marked now then as it certainly is now. I mean, just point. the gap between the clubs. I mean, it's actually going to be interesting next season because it's pretty. I mean, you'd say it's probably fairly likely that the 3 that went up come straight back down. So that means they only get 2 years worth of parachute payments rather than the 3 that we've got. And they've all got their various issues. I mean, Luton, I think, are the most stable, and yet, I mean, it's Luton. You wouldn't expect them to be in a promotion hunt next season if they.
But they will be the richest team in the league.
Yeah, quite possibly.
They will be.
It's mad, but yeah, I think I mean, as you say, we did it 11 years ago, going straight through, and of course Norwich did it the year before.
Steve, the vague similarity between us and you back then is there was always a sense that Southampton was way too big for League One. Yeah. And if they could just wind up and get some momentum and start winning in the 3rd tier, could they just fire right through? And we got stuck in the Championship with Marcus Evans' ownership. And you just, talk to, say, Preston or Bristol City fans, where's a good season coming from? As much as League One sucks, if you can get the momentum going and, again, complete self-awareness, we were the rich buggers in League One who had more money than everyone. So you get it started then. And, there's maybe that similarity there.
I'll get a score prediction from you in just a minute, Benjamin. I mean, Alfie, just finally, I mean, we will need to be excellent, won't we, tomorrow? But this is a good opportunity. You look at the weekend, you go, actually, 4 points from those 2 games. Not ideal, but not a bad return.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Carl Walker-Peters on Thursday before the game, and he sees the fact that you go to all 3 of these teams as an opportunity. I mean, the destiny's not in Southampton's hands anymore. The only way you can put it back into their grasp is by beating them all, and you don't have to rely on other results by doing that. But I just look at that Ipswich front 4, and Ben, I don't know if you can tell me if Amari Hutchinson's injured, but Hutchinson, Broadhead, Chaplin, and Kiefer Moore. That's 4 top forwards for this division against the defence, which is at the moment struggling against 1 or 2 top forwards when they come against them. And I think it's going to be really difficult. I think Russell Martin's going to have to, or I think he's going to have to come up with something to try and subdue that a little bit. And maybe we see I was speaking to George about it earlier, and he suggested maybe we see the return of the 5 back for the first time under him, just to get enough bodies in so that Kiefer Moore isn't heading everything down, every 10 minutes and causing problems. So I think it's going to be a tough one. Russell Martin is certainly aware of the Norwich sort of link. He brought it up himself that he doesn't need to get himself up for a game as big as this. Obviously I'm sure he is focused, but he knows that it's a big one. I'm looking forward to going. I'm looking forward to the game. I don't think it'll be 0-0. I think there'll be goals in it. But we just have to hope on the right side, because otherwise I think it's pretty much all hope lost.
Benjamin, I'm going to let you go because I know you've got your podcast tonight, haven't you, 8 o'clock. Can I just get a score prediction from you before you do?
Well, I'll stick with what I said with Sam Parkin on the Championship Check-In podcast. I said 2-2, and there's so many ways this could play out. All I will say is the way Ipswich play at home and the way Ipswich... It's not that they defend badly. They're just so open. And you look at the Southampton attacking talent on paper. Southampton could score between 0 and 5 goals at Portman Road if, things add up in certain ways. So I hope, because it's on TV, it's in the plum slot at 5:30, isn't it? I just hope it's a brilliant game where both teams, really, really go at it. They're going to play in a very similar way. There's not much in it other than Southampton have better players than Ipswich. Everyone knows that, but Ipswich have the momentum and maybe the the kind of tick in the box with the coaching. Kieran McKenna's a bit further down the road than Russ Martin with this particular set of players. So yeah, I just hope it plays out how we all expect it to, and it's not this over technical bore fest where both teams have 78% possession and nobody does anything with it.
Well, we've just seen one of those. In
Right,
Yeah.
Man City, Arsenal today. Benjamin, enjoy your podcast tonight. All the best, and cheers for coming on.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, by the way, I will come on here. If you guys get into second and you go on this run now and you win away at all the teams, I'll come on here. I will stand up out of this chair and give a massive standing away. What a promotion that would be if you went through, beat the entire top three. In fact, Reading did that, didn't they, at your expense when you finished second? They went to a massive run.
Cheers for that.
To be fair, I spoke to Jovi Mack enough about it, and he said, "Oh, they murdered us in that game, but we were just winning every single."
Yeah, they
every
had
single week."
three shots and scored 3 goals. It was ridiculous.
There you go.
In that
There
case,
you
I
go.
hope we see you again soon. Then forget you are. Cheers
Well
for
done,
coming
lads.
on. Thanks
Cheers,
a lot.
lads.
See you
See you
later.
soon.
Cheers, man.
Bye. I mean, Steve, let's be honest. If we lose on Monday, then it's going to be West Brom in the semis, isn't it? It's quite an important one.
Well, I don't think third is out of the question. I think it's still up for grabs if Leicester continue playing the way that they're playing. But yeah, realistically, third or fourth is going to be the kind of sum total of our ambitions for the remainder of the season, and making sure that you go into those playoffs with a bit of momentum, because the last thing you want to be doing is being that team that kind of stumbles and trips their way through into those postseason games, when ultimately those are the games where you need to be putting a performance on, and you can't kind of do that from a standing start. You've got to have a good run at it, I think. And I mean, obviously those closing fixtures don't help in that regard in many ways. But yeah, I mean, we've seen us go away to good opposition in this league and win well, as we did at West Brom, 5-6 weeks ago. So yeah, I mean, and we went into that game off the back of a dreadful defeat at Bristol City, where all of a sudden the sky was falling in, and they got everything sorted, and it went pretty much perfectly that night, I thought. So all we got to do is hope that they pull another rabbit out of the hat tomorrow night.
Yeah, let's get the score prediction. So we've got a 2-2 from Benjamin. Glenn, your score prediction for tomorrow?
It doesn't matter what I say because I get it wrong every week. So, but I will at least attempt to say something sensible. I think Ipswich will feel the pressure a little bit. I'd be amazed if they didn't. Even Leeds hit the top and then lost, then drew the next game, didn't get a result. So I'm hoping we catch them on a bad day, and I don't think we can be as, I don't know, ineffective is probably the right word, as we were on Friday. So I'm optimistically going to go for a 2-1 win. Keep it alive.
Alfie, score prediction, please.
Yeah, before I give mine for this week, I just wanted to address the fact that I think someone else said that we'd win 4-1 against Middlesbrough, which was looking back, given the international break and everything we know about coming back and the rhythm, that is an awful prediction. And I just want to apologise for that.
I've got no idea where we were coming from with that. I mean, we should have won 4-1, right?
To be fair, maybe. But I think this one, I'm not confident about this as well. But I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I don't think Saints can afford to lose. I think there's a goal in both teams.
Steve?
Same as Ben, really, was that, it's going to be insanely open. Ipswich's defensive record at home is poor. So if we can't get goals in that environment, then we've kind of no business being a so-called contender, really. But going the other way, obviously they score plenty as well. So that's a problem. But yeah, like Glenn said, the pressure of going top, they've not done it before, so we'll see how they react to it. 2-2.
Well, we'll have a special midweek podcast on Tuesday night. That one's at 7:15, just to review the game. It's scheduled on the YouTube channel already. So apparently if you head there and you hit the bell, then you'll get a notification when we start our live stream. So yeah, who knew? So we'll see you on Tuesday evening, 7:15, to review that one. A couple of other bits before we finish. Glenn, I want to come back to, we were just talking about some of the substitutions on Friday, and Mark got in touch. He said, why do you think Russell Martin goes all out to extend the lead rather than consolidating and trying to close out games? So instead of only bringing on attacking subs against Middlesbrough, I think it was Fraser, Mara and Brooks. Would it have been better to bring on the likes of Bednarek or maybe Rothwell instead of Adams, Sudamana, Armstrong? I mean, accepting that hindsight is a wonderful thing. I know that you were touching on this as well, like with Rothwell, maybe he would have been a better option to come in. It did feel like we were going for that second rather than going, right, one is enough. There's 10 minutes to go. Let's shut up shop.
The reason I said for Rothwell was not particularly for defensive reasons. We were trying to score a second goal to put the game to bed, and he has demonstrated an ability to do that from the sort of number 10 position that Stuart Armstrong occupies. And Stuart Armstrong, he struggles to play 90 minutes. Let's be honest. He struggles to keep going,
especially after an international break,
at the correct intensity for 90 minutes. So I was surprised that he didn't come on. I was surprised that Joe Aribo wasn't used earlier as well, because that's two players who've got a goal in them. I mean, Russell Martin showed his kind of mindset, if you like, by leaving Shay Charles out, and he wasn't even on the bench. And that's the player you think, okay, if we're getting overrun in midfield, then we take off a small bone or whatever and put Shay Charles on, and then we can ballast up the midfield. What we had done if Flynn Downs had got injured, we'd have ended up doing the small bone Rothwell thing again, wouldn't we? And he doesn't seem to be too concerned, about the defence later in the game. I kind of see the point of. Sorry, I missed the guy's name of what he's trying to say with the
Mark.
question. Yeah, Mark. But no, I don't think, have we gone to 3 at the back at any stage this season? Properly.
So.
I know we've done this. We've done the hybrid thing, but we haven't gone to, right, these are our 3 centre backs and we're going to see this out. We might have done one game. I vaguely remember him throwing Jack Stevens on in one game in about the 85th minute or something, quite early on before Christmas. So yeah, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. I mean, there is an argument that if you don't get the second goal, having been trying for basically an hour, then maybe you have what you hold attitude. And that's what Ben was just saying. That was obviously what Ipswich's attitude was in the last sort of 20 minutes against Blackburn. They accepted they weren't going to score another goal, and it was just like, well, we're just going to kick it miles now. That's the one thing that, Russell Martin's principles, they're very laudable, but sometimes I believe you do have to, put your foot through it. Just have to accept that today's not going to be your day to get another goal. But I don't think anyone watching that game could believe we were incapable of scoring a goal. We just missed some horrific chances. So yeah, I kind of see Mark's point, but in terms of the game on Friday, I just think they could have done with being a little bit more proactive with forward players earlier on. I mean, we saw Sekou Mara's new haircut, and that was it. That's all he showed us. So that was a waste of time. And taking Adam Armstrong off when you've already taken Adams off. You've taken off the guy who scores all our goals, and I don't understand that substitution either. It was just weird. It was like, let's save him for 5 minutes for the Ipswich game. It's like, why? We haven't won this one yet. So there was lots of things going on that I found a bit mystifying with the substitutions, I have to say.
There's been a couple of emails and messages about the Ross Stewart thing and the gamble not paying off. Obviously, we're going to be talking about that because we've got a striker that didn't score at the weekend. I mean, Benjamin mentioned it as well, didn't he? There was some better news, though, Alfie. We spotted him in the training videos this week, so he's back on the grass at least.
Yeah, he's back in light team training. As I said, maybe 2 months ago now, the hint that I got from Russell Martin was that if they go to the playoffs, which now looks very likely, there's a chance he can play a role. So I think there is a serious possibility that we see some Ross Stewart in the final sort of 20 minutes of a playoff semi-final, final half an hour of a final if you get there. Yeah, I mean, look, we've spoken about Ross Stewart a million times because it's obviously, in hindsight, a poor bit of recruitment for this season. And if that ends up being the difference between going up, then obviously people are going to have to accept that was a mistake. But they see him as a long-term signing. They see him as somebody who can be good for this club for many years. So if he comes back fully fit and doesn't have another reoccurrence of an injury, he will be a new signing next season, whether that's in the Championship or the Premier League. And if it's in the Championship, you'd like to think he's a marked improvement on Che Adams. So maybe they'll still try and buy somebody else. But yeah, good news for him. I'm here for the narrative. If he can come on, play 20 minutes in the season and score the most important goal that will pockets the club 100 million quid, then it was the best signing of all time. But we'll have to wait and see.
Do you know what, though? Because I was watching the Netflix Sunderland Till I Die, and they've done like a new series which has only got 3 episodes, and it just covers them getting promoted. And they beat Wycombe Wanderers, I think, wasn't it 2-0 in the playoff final? And Ross Stewart scores, and they do a nice little interview with him, and his family are there, and how much it means to play for him. And then obviously he scores like the second goal, and I was just watching that today, going, I wonder if that's the narrative, but who knows? Steve, the other thing we've had a lot of messages about, as you can imagine, is the stewarding and the events that happened on Friday afternoon. Now, I just down your end, I mean, without getting too much into this, because I mean, the club aren't going to make a statement. We understand there weren't any arrests. The people involved may well be watching tonight, but just from your end and what you saw, not great.
No, and it kind of feels like it was a huge storm in a teacup that could easily have been avoided. I mean, there is this kind of childish element of when a steward tells you not to do something, you automatically then go and continue doing it, which is clearly the issue that the steward in question had. But these guys have been banging that very same advertising board all season. At various points in the game where there's been a slight lull in the atmosphere, they've been among the ones in the Northern Kingsland corner, right at the very front, to try and regenerate a little bit of atmosphere. And so this isn't a new development for them, and yet suddenly this steward has taken some sort of umbrage with it, and rather than just having a calm word and saying, look, kind of at least just sort of dial it back a little bit, it turned into a full blown sort of in your face row with people, and eventually the police got called, and it's just like, this is ridiculous. It was absolutely pathetic. And yeah, I mean, it just felt like, like in the past, we had issues, didn't we, in the Northern, I mean, talking 15, 20 years ago now, like the early years at St Mary's, where obviously the local council were trying to be hot on the standing and seated areas. Yeah. Obviously they've kind of long since done away with caring about it, but at that point the stewards were,
and they'd all walk up, wouldn't they?
They walk up, get everybody sat down, and then they get halfway up, and then someone in front would start singing "Stand Up If You Love the Saints," and it would all go back again, and it was utterly tedious. And
it was you, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. But this kind of felt like similar sort of childish type thing, but also a complete waste of time on the steward's part, because even if there was something that they were actually doing wrong, and I don't really know I mean, obviously I wasn't down there pitch side with the conversation, so I don't know what words were exchanged in terms of what exactly the steward had a problem with. But from where I was stood, all they were doing was banging a hard advertising board to generate a bit of noise, to kind of give that sort of beat for people to either clap or sing along to. And yeah, just sort it all out. Write a letter saying sorry, it was all a misunderstanding. Let's get on with things.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it'd be interesting to know whether it was someone in the club hierarchy who's said clamp down on this, or whether it was just a steward being slightly overzealous and taking it upon themselves to try and sort out a problem that wasn't really there.
I would be very surprised if it was someone with the club hierarchy, given the sort of the attempts they're making to improve the atmosphere. We had a stand up and make some noise announcement at the start of the game, and knowing those guys in charge now a little bit, I think they're all football people who want an atmosphere, they want noise, they want it to be intimidating for the away team. They don't want it to be an easy ride. So, yeah, I mean, the club, I've asked the club for a statement. They haven't given one yet, and that's fair enough. But I would be very surprised if they were happy about that altercation, for sure.
I found it strange because the two guys, I think it might have been the two guys, but when Saints brass were doing their little bit just before kickoff, and they show lots of pictures on the screen, one of the images, and I don't know if it was live of the two guys, but it was the two lads banging the boards just to get everything going. So, it was part of the pre-match, let's bring some noise, as you say, and let's make the most of it. So, yeah, really, really bizarre to see that. But yeah, maybe there'll be some more stuff that comes out this week. I don't know. Need to talk about the women's team as well, not least the scheduling, but another win today, Steve. It's similar to us, similar to the men's team, isn't it, in that every game counts now?
Yeah, I think they were kind of in almost last chance saloon like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and in fairness, they'd gone on a good run and had got them into position. Also with other teams slipping up, and they'd taken advantage of it. Unfortunately, they then went to Blackburn last week and were 2-0 down inside about 10 minutes. And yeah, familiar story, missed a hatful of chances and couldn't quite do enough to get back into the game. And I think realistically that last week was kind of where the promotion dream probably died for this season. They beat Lewes 2-1 this afternoon at St Mary's. But with the other results the way they've gone, Sunderland and Palace both won big. Charlton won, I think, as well. So while we've got to play Charlton on the final day, and I think it's Sunderland, I think it's Palace against Sunderland on the final day as well. So the only way we could possibly go up is if we win our remaining 2 games, which, I mean, it's doable. We're away to London City Lionesses, who are, I think, 4th bottom, and then at home to Charlton on the final day. Win both of those, and then I think Sunderland and Palace would have to draw that last game. That would be the only way that we could possibly sneak in. And I think it still even relies on Palace's game in hand going our way as well. So very, very slim chances, I would say. But I think
we've got to wait a week or so. Is it 2 weeks now for a game?
Oh, well, our next game's 3 weeks away on the 21st. So we've got an international break coming up. And then the week immediately after the international break is basically a round of fixtures to fit in all the postponements. We've not had any games at all called off this season, I don't think. So we're completely up with our fixtures. So we get an extra week off. Whether that helps or hinders, I mean, we've seen what the men's team tend to do after international breaks, so I'm not sure that necessarily bodes well.
Well, it might do, because it appears that the women have got about 8 players injured at the moment.
This is also true, yeah.
You look at the list of players, and it always frustrates me that there's never any information about, like you knew when Kyle Walker-Peters was out a few weeks ago that it was likely to be 3 or 4 weeks. But if I just take one, for example, Rosie Parnell's the captain. I don't think she's played for 2 months. But, unless I've missed it, there's been no sort of big, she's done her Achilles or something like that. It does frustrate me a bit when you sort of like try and sort of keep in touch with it. And there's so many players missing, man, you've got absolutely no idea why.
One thing we need to do before we finish is Player of the Week, which we didn't get time to do earlier before we did the preview. So there were
Jay Adams.
1 or 2. I noticed that on Friday they changed the way that you vote in the stadium now, and you have to do it downloading the app.
Which is great for all the people that get absolutely zero signal in the stadium.
There's Wi-Fi now; it should be fine.
Yeah, but it's not great.
No.
Yeah, rarely get a signal on that either during the game. It's annoying.
Glenn, who do you want to nominate for Player of the Week? Who stood out for you?
Flynn Downs. I thought he was decent again. Just didn't waste a pass, got about the park, put a load of tackles in. I thought he was our best player, but you can make an argument for that every week, to be honest. Apart from when he's come back from injury or injured himself during the game. I thought he was good. I'm not having. I mean, Jack Stevens got the vote, didn't he, in the ground? But I wasn't terribly impressed with the organisation in the last sort of 10, 15 minutes, I have to say. And that's the majority of what he's in the team for, it appears. So I'm not saying it's his fault. He did some good things, but overall, over the 95 minutes or whatever it was, I'd say Flynn Downs.
Alfie, who are you adding to the list?
Oh, you have to come to me now. Well, despite what Glenn has just said, I'm going to add Jack Stevens to the list, because I would have voted for him at the time, so I'll vote for him now. I get what Glenn's saying, but I felt that he was the most reliable defender, and that moment of just him turning on the afterburners for the first time in a while was just nice. So for me, Jack.
I thought they should have played Zombie Nation after that tackle. It was brilliant. Saved the goal.
There was enough distractions in the ground at the time, wasn't there? So.
Steve.
Adam Armstrong got the goal again. Involved a fair amount in the first half. It was a little bit more disjointed second half, weirdly, even though we created a lot more chances. But I think this kind of shifting of system and him having to then move inside, where let's be honest, we're not as confident with him playing as the number 9 as we are out wide. So I'd go with him as the as kind of the next cab off the rank on that.
Nice one. That's pretty much it for this week. Don't forget, we've got that special midweek podcast on Tuesday evening. That's going to be at 7:15. Going to review the Ipswich game, and we'll look ahead to it'll be Blackburn Rovers at the weekend. You can follow Total Saints Podcast on all the social media platforms. It's at Total Saints Pod, and you can drop us a DM on any of the socials or send us an email via the website if you've got something to share. Do check out the new merch store as well, shop.totalsaints.co.uk. You can get t-shirts, you can get mugs as well. There you go. Shop.totalsaints.co.uk for all of those. You'll also find us on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with a monthly contribution. Just visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. There are 4 tiers on there, ranging from £5 to £20 per month. And each of the tiers comes with different perks, including weekly shout outs for the patrons in our Francis Benali and our Mick Shannon tier. So thanks to Dave Melton, Mark Atkins, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Saints in Exile, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer, James Kibbe, and Mike E. They're all in our Francis Benali tier. And also to Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Ed Busy, Nick Higston, Phil Cook, Nick Reed, Paul Stewart, Phil Horstrup, Matt Hall, and Mark Littlewood, who are all in our Mick Shannon tier. Thank you, Steve. Cheers, Glenn. Thank you, Alfie. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, we'll see you on Tuesday evening at 7:15 for the live stream.